So we just saw the release of the long-awaited OnePlus Nord, and it looks great, but we already have another phone at a similar price that many were calling the best budget phone of the year. So which is better? Well, let's go over what each of them offers. The OnePlus Nord's design is very modern without a doubt, with its 6.5-inch AMOLED display that goes right up to the edges and its dual hole punch cameras. No one would ever suspect that this is a budget phone. It seriously looks like a flagship, but there's more to this display than meets the eye. For one, it's got a nice optical in-display fingerprint reader, and it's also the first ever OnePlus phone to have not one, but two selfie cameras, a 32 megapixel main shooter, and then an 8 megapixel ultra-wide. This display also sports that 90 Hz refresh rate that many have come to love on so many Android phones today that Apple has still not implemented on any of their flagships. I will say, the actual refresh rate of the display does make the whole experience feel a bit more snappy, but I wouldn't really consider it a key smartphone feature, as long as the phone in question has 60 Hz, which all at least do. It certainly doesn't limit what you can do with the phone. I know that's a controversial opinion. Flipping the phone around though, the great camera tech continues with its triple camera setup. It's got a 48 megapixel main shooter, another 8 megapixel ultra wide, and a 2 megapixel macro camera, and a 5 megapixel depth sensor. So I guess technically this is a quad core camera setup, but that depth sensor isn't really a camera, so it doesn't really count. Also, that 2 megapixel macro camera. I mean, I barely use the telephoto lens on my iPhone at all, so I honestly doubt I would ever use the macro. Like seriously, can you imagine wanting to like take a picture of like an ant or something? Because that's what that's for. Another big win for OnePlus here is the battery. At 4100 milliamp hours, you will have no problem getting through the day with this phone. And for charging, this phone carries over OnePlus's coveted warp charging, which means you can charge this phone way faster than almost any other right out of the box. This phone also has 5G capability. Nice. Not too much to say about that, but that means you'll be future-proof for when 5G becomes more widely available. Let's take a look at what's powering this phone, because that's where this guy really starts to falter. The phone sports a Snapdragon 765G chip, which is so incomparable to Apple's chips, it's not even funny. This phone won't run bad per se, especially since it comes with 8 gigabytes of RAM. It even includes a 12 gigabyte RAM option for a bit more money, but this chip can do a fraction of what Apple's can. Which brings us to the iPhone SE. It was considered a crazy good deal when it came out at $399, but it is practically a polar opposite to this phone in every way. See, everywhere where the Nord cut corners, the iPhone SE didn't. And anywhere where the iPhone cut corners, the Nord didn't. Like that screen. There's no question that this phone looks super outdated. It's nearly identical to the iPhone 6 from 2014. But the resolution is still great, and despite it being old, it's still definitely usable. Just small. This phone also has a fingerprint sensor, just like the Nord, and it is also under the display. Like literally under the display, below it. It's not embedded in the display like the Nord, but this still should do the job. But all joking aside, at first glance, this iPhone seems to be beat by the OnePlus in nearly every spec, whether it be battery life, number of cameras, RAM, 5G connectivity that the iPhone doesn't have, but where the iPhone really pushes past the OnePlus is in speed. The iPhone SE sports the same Apple A13 Bionic chip found in the mighty iPhone 11 Pro, and this thing is an absolute beast. We saw a predecessor version of this chip, the A12Z, running a demo Mac Pro at WWDC, and although that Mac will never actually hit production, it just shows how powerful Apple's chips really can be. There's also a few other things that are great about this phone, like its IP67 water resistance rating that OnePlus doesn't have, that wireless charging, and even its camera. As great as the 48 megapixel camera on the OnePlus sounds, this 12 megapixel camera on the SE might just be better. It's going to look nearly identical to the sensor found in the 11 Pro, with great image processing and smart HDR, and worlds better video. Although there may only be one camera, the camera itself on this SE is shockingly good. There's also just iOS. If you're impartial to either operating system, this might not matter to you, but if you're currently stuck in the Apple ecosystem, then switching to the Nord and using Oxygen OS, which is basically Android, might just be more hassle than it's worth, when we've got a great option from Apple already. And the Apple iPhone SE even costs $399, about $81 less than the seemingly random price of the OnePlus Nord of $480. And I say seemingly random because actually it's not random at all. That's just its price converted from euros because, oh yeah, you can't even buy this phone in the US. Sure, you could get it shipped in, but if you're watching from any of the 50 states, then this phone may not be for you. So overall though, which should you buy? Well, it's really just going to depend on where your priorities are. If you just want a great overall phone that will last you for years, but will not cost you a fortune, then the OnePlus Nord is great. It's not spectacular in any way, but I think it skimps on the least amount of stuff compared to most other budget phones. Even if you're in the US, if this phone looks great to you, you could just get a used or refurbished OnePlus 8 for a similar price, which is practically the same phone as the Nord, but without the Nord's most significant downfall of its cheap processor. So at least you're benefiting in that area for a bit of extra price. But if you're an iOS user and you're really just stuck in that ecosystem, the SE still will not serve you wrong. It's cheaper than the Nord or the OnePlus 8, and it's still got a bunch of great features. It is definitely better for someone not as into tech, so probably not anyone watching this channel, since it'll be easier for them to get past its outdated design. But honestly, after a few weeks, anyone could get used to it. And considering that, of all things, is its greatest downfall, it makes the iPhone SE look like a really attractive option. Also, you can get in the US, so there's that too. But what if your biggest priority is the camera? Well, for that, I would say between the OnePlus Nord and the iPhone SE, I would get the Google Pixel 4a. It's coming so soon. It's been delayed like 100 times, but guys, if the rumors are true, this will be the best camera on any budget phone ever. And it will for sure be available in the US. So if you're not some sort of iOS only user and you're willing to use Android, then honestly, this might be your best bet overall. I'm sure the design will look outdated compared to the Nord, but the camera will be great. And it's going to carry over practically every feature from the Nord and the SE, combining to create one super phone. From 5G capability to wireless charging, to a great price. This thing's supposed to be only $349. So honestly, this might be the best option here. The only reason I struggle to recommend it is it's still not out yet. It was supposed to be announced at Google I/O months ago, which got canceled, and now every few weeks we hear about another delay. And so at this point, many are speculating that the phone may just never release. So if that happens, then everything I said in this video stays. Go for the OnePlus Nord if you live out of the US, the OnePlus 8 if you live in the US, and the iPhone SE if you are exclusive to iOS. But if that long-rumored Pixel 4a ever does finally hit stores this fall, that just may be the ultimate budget phone of the year to absolutely blow any of the competition out of the water. But we will have to wait and see, because guys, that is pretty much it for this video. Don't forget to ring my like button and subscribe to my bell, because I will see you next time. I gotta go edit this video. See you next week. Hey, so before you go, what'd you think of this new setup? Just set this up yesterday with a brand new video light. I'm thinking about doing a whole video on how I created this setup using a bunch of DIY stuff, but I put a picture of it on the community tab. You can kind of scope it out and let me know. I put out a poll if you'd like to see a full video on this setup. I'm hoping to use this one permanently from now on, so let me know if you think it looks good. Okay, that's really it.